Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
Welcome back to The Deal. I'm Jason Kelly.
I'm Alex Rodriguez.
All right, today we've got a banger of an episode. Robin Arzón, she is not only a top Peloton instructor, she's a top executive at the company, plus she's building this whole empire outside of Peloton.
Jason, she's a force of nature. I mean, she went from being a corporate litigator to being one of the top influencers in the country. And I'm really interested to know how she's transferred some of those skills from being a corporate litigator to being one of the most influential people in sports.
Absolutely. She's talking about investing in teams. There is nothing she can't do, and she is full of energy. Coming up, Robin Arzón. Robin Arzón, we are so happy to see you. Welcome to The Deal. I mean, I've known you a little bit. I feel like I know you really well, which is part of the reason that we're going to get into this amazing brand you've built and this connection you have with people. But I have to say, Alex, we've been talking about the fact our phones have been blowing up about the fact that we're sitting here with you, right?
Yes. Well, first of all, no one's more excited than Jason. and as a result, I'm also very excited because my phone's been blowing up. My girlfriend, Jack, my daughters who love Peloton, but they love you. But I thought we were interviewing Taylor Swift today. I mean, it's really exciting.
Yeah.
But you're also
I'm honored.
a corporate lawyer. First of all, I do want to know, how'd you go from being a lawyer to where you are now?
Well, I was a corporate litigator, and my dad was a lawyer growing up. And I used to sit on his blue books. He was also a law professor, a real estate law professor in Philadelphia. He taught at Temple, went to and taught at Temple. And so I kind of grew up with the law. When I was 10 years old, you asked me back to school, what am I going to be? It was a lawyer. So I did practice law for 8 years. I was a corporate litigator, and I was underwhelmed. If you asked me if I hated it, I didn't hate it. It was a malaise that I think is pretty pervasive, frankly, in a lot of industries, but especially law. And I fell in love with running. So I started running when I was in law school. I really started running to run through a really traumatic incident that happened when I was in college. And I wrote about that in my first book, Shut Up and Run. And that actually used to be my mantra. It was stop the chatter. Let's shut it up. Let's lace up and run. And I started doing marathons and ultra marathons while I was still practicing law. And I had this moment where I thought, I can't count down to only 20 minutes in Central Park that were my release throughout the week. And I had such admiration for athletes who made this their lives. And I thought, how can I pay my rent with something that I love? I quit law 2 weeks before the London Olympic Games. And with a cracked iPhone, I went and slept on my friend's couch and just, quote, reported from the games. And so this is kind of when influencer marketing was just becoming a thing. And I kind of hit lightning in a bottle at that time, really recording and documenting my athletic experience as a person who's not a professional athlete.
I have a quick follow-up on that because you worked at one of the most respected law firms. So explain to me, when is the moment that you look in the mirror and say, I'm at a great law firm, I have a great career, great trajectory, young lawyer, doing well, I want to go do something else?
Yeah.
'Cause most people would think that's crazy.
Well, especially I don't know. I come from a refugee immigrant family. My dad, grew up in the Bronx and was born in Puerto Rico. My mom is a Cuban refugee. And to think that I would leave something that was so secure to do question mark. I didn't even know. I was building the rocket ship as it was leaving the station. The fact that they supported me was amazing. Not supported me financially, but emotionally, right? I told my mom and my dad, you are never going to have to pay a dime. I'm going to figure this out myself. And I lived well below my means when I was a lawyer, and I just saved. And it was actually at a crossroads of buying an apartment or leaving law. It was am I going to be all in? Or am I going to give myself financial freedom? And thank goodness that I did, because I was able to take really big bets on myself that if I were tethered to, a mortgage, trying to aspire to, live like the Joneses in New York City, that's a pretty high bar.
Do you remember the moment you made the decision when you're this is happening?
I think it's iterative, right? That there are lots of different inflection points. So it was probably a 2-year slow burn where I was I really love this other thing. This thing is just okay. And I would come home. I was still working 80-hour weeks. I still had billable hour requirements and partners that I really respected, actually, and learned a lot from. But it was this malaise that I mentioned. So I remember coming home one night from the office, Seamless, it was called Seamless Web at the time, was like my best friend, ordering whatever on the client's time, but like still working right through dinner. And I got home at 11:19, and I opened up the notes app on my phone, and I just made a list of the things that I thought I was good at and that I wanted to be able to showcase in the world. There was no wrong answer. And it was literally be able to show my tattoos, be able to use my oral advocacy skills on a wider scale, be able to, talk about sports as somebody who was not an athlete historically. And, literally it was like be able to run, be able to sweat. And it's what my job is now at Peloton and beyond, to the letter.
Yeah.
You could call it business planning, manifestation, mumbo jumbo. It worked because I was able to clarify with specificity how I wanted to feel in this new life. And then it was like, okay, I got to marry skill set with opportunity. And now I at least know what to look for. And that was probably 6 months before I quit. And then 2 weeks before the London Olympic Games, I just pulled off the Band-Aid. And I was like, I just need to be around these athletes. I need to be around the people who are talking about sport and living it. And I just wanted to be in their orbit, like breathe the same air. Not obviously as a fan, but as somebody who could like engage in conversation with these people. And that was the objective. And I remember going to one of the track practices and talking to the USATF PR person. And like, I was like, I just want to ask Alison Felix one question. And, now, we're, she's my friend.
She's your girl.
Yeah. So it's just amazing how, you peel the layers of the onion and like there's always more there.
I think about being a Yankee for a long time and playing baseball for over 25 years. Some of the virtues and characteristics that I've taken from sports to bring to the boardroom. I'm curious, talk about lawyer. You have to be buttoned up. You can't show your tattoos. You can't really show any emotion, opposite of what you're doing now. But was there anything you took that you learned in law that's helped you be such a great communicator and a connector to people?
For sure, as a storyteller, I think if you can make a legal brief interesting, you can do a lot with more interesting topics. But the billable hours model that I lifted from my law career directly impacted my ability to see movement and my ideas around storytelling within the wellness umbrella as a business. Because during the beginning of these influencer marketing days, it was a lot of gifted products and like PR packages, which are still obviously relevant now. But back then, it wasn't really you pay an influencer for a campaign. It was like, I'm going to give you shoes and you're just going to be so grateful that I gave you shoes that you're not really going to know the value, the marketing dollars of what you just gave me. And obviously, we're so deeply grateful to receive product. I still am. But that's not going to pay my rent. Like my landlord was not going to be like, thanks for these Nikes, And so I adopted a billable hours model, and I just said, no, you can't pick my brain. I'm a consultant. Oh. And some brands said no, but enough said yes. And then I was being booked not only as talent, but also as a consultant for these marketing agencies.
How do you discover Peloton? So 2012, you're talking about. Peloton is what?
Peloton was probably its like co-founders plus a few initial leadership folks. They hadn't opened the studio yet. And I read about Peloton in an article, and then I reached out to the company cold.
Cold email.
Yeah. So during this time, I was teaching cycling at a local spin studio. I was working on my first book, and I was about to publish my first book when I started at Peloton. I was one of the first instructors hired, and we had our original studio on 23rd Street.
So, Robin, one of the great advantages to being a lawyer is being a supreme great writer like this guy, Jason. What did that email say?
Well, I wanted to sell the vision, the passion, and a little bit of the skill set. And I was a newer spin instructor, right? So I couldn't say, like, I've been in this industry X amount of years. But I told them that I saw how disruptive this technology could be, and I wanted to light fires. Like, I want to light fires in people's lives. And that is still one of my core mandates for all of my businesses. It's got to light fires.
Yeah.
And they kind of believed the passion of the email. And then it was followed up 2 days later with an audition. And then you're seeing, like, can you walk the walk?
Yeah.
And thankfully they accepted.
And so how do you prepare for an audition? Like, you're teaching classes, so you know what you're doing, but I assume, you have to get used to it. As someone who has taken a lot of Peloton classes, you're speaking to a camera. I mean, you're speaking to me, but I'm in my basement. Like, how do you lock in to communicate like that? How do you develop that skill?
Well, for me, it definitely started as a lawyer. Like, I used to walk around my apartment and pretend that I was speaking to, really it was less courtroom stuff, a lot of deposition stuff, and I would practice that Q&A and kind of the mental gymnastics of if they say this, I'm going to say this. And obviously when you're presenting a class or a speech or something, it's different. It's not usually like a volley back and forth. I almost visualize it like I'm writing it on a board, and those are the things that end up coming into my notes.
Really?
Yeah.
Like when you're on the bike?
No, before.
Oh,
so I'm always
okay.
prepping my class plan and my playlist beforehand.
Right.
And then I'm usually listening to the playlist as I'm going into the studio.
Okay.
And the things that I want to say in class are kind of embedded. Like I visually see it.
Wow.
Yeah. And sometimes it's from my self-talk, and then sometimes it's imagining Jason, across from, who is that red light?
Yeah.
There's enough of a feedback loop with our members, either via social media or sometimes obviously if they're in the studio, that I kind of have a sense of what the conversation is around certain types of movement, certain types of classes.
And Robin, when you get off, I mean, obviously in baseball, when you have a good game, the scoreboard will tell you if you have a good game or not, right? So it's very, very easy. When you get off that bike, do you know, was this a 10? Was it a 9? Was it a 5? Do you know if you had a great class and if you hit all your points?
I mean, energy is currency, right? Like there's just a moment where whether you hit it and whether you were in a flow state, right? Like if I'm in a flow state in most of my classes. When I'm not, it's just life, it's distraction, it's my kid, it's whatever, it's life. And my job is to refocus myself, and I have tools and tactics to do that like any athlete would. But that is the interesting thing, is that we're maybe more like a TV network.
Yeah.
And that I'll get like the numbers and things like that with my producers later. And it'll be like, oh, this class was gangbusters. And I'm like, really? That 20-minute Tabata class was like this, right? But I really, and then this is what I say to the other instructors, like, we have the responsibility to walk into every class like it is an audition to be there. And if you do not have the appetite to treat every class like it's an audition to be there, then you don't belong on the team anymore.
Wow.
And that's truly the standard that I try to hold to myself. I'm not saying every class is a 10 out of 10, but I do approach the work ethic with that respect.
Well, and it's interesting too, because, pretty quickly you get to a point, because, you and I first met when I was anchoring the Bloomberg Business Week show. We came out to a homecoming event. Homecoming, is that?
Yeah. Well, it was homecoming.
Okay. Yeah. Back in the day.
It's evolved since then.
Right.
Yeah.
Back in the day. And I mean, at that point, this is 10 years ago, probably 8-10 years ago, you were already in a position where you were the lead instructor. So how does it get to the point where you're not just an instructor, but, John Foley, co-founder and then CEO, gives you the responsibility to essentially, to your point, sort of run the network in terms of the talent side?
Yeah, well, our chief content officer has the C-level role of quote, running the network, and I report to them. Our current CCO is Jen Cotter, and I've worked with her for a number of years. But when I was promoted, it was, pretty early days in Peloton. I do think that my law degree helped.
Yeah.
I was able to uniquely sit in meetings and kind of understand business KPIs and also understand the talent needs. Sometimes I'm wearing talent hats. Sometimes I'm wearing an executive hat.
Yeah.
And it could be one meeting. I might swap those hats many, many times. But it's, championing the instructor's points of view, because, I mean, Peloton didn't go into the talent business, but it's now in the talent business.
Oh, yeah.
But that wasn't initially, that perspective wasn't always appreciated,
Right.
especially when group fitness was a lot more common back in those days with other competitors. It was like, yeah, I'm here to teach a cycling class, but I'm a business.
Right.
And it took some iterating on that concept.
So, Robin, when you think about wearing different hats, when you look at talent, what are the first 2 or 3 things you look? I mean, obviously, when I look at a baseball player, I'm looking for speed. I'm looking for a great arm. I'm looking for a great body. Someone's going to age well. What are the things that you look for in a great talent?
I think at this point we're really proud of the diversity and the breadth that we have with our instructor team, and we scale, obviously, right? So we don't need 5 of the same exact type of instructor or musicality. I want a point of view, right? So there is a physicality, obviously, to what we do. You have to be an athlete clearly you have to have certifications, you need to be a subject matter expert, but that's like dime a dozen. I want somebody who has a point of view that can translate that to after thousands of hours of doing it. Because somebody can audition and BS something for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
You can't really do that when you're sprinting, when you're on your, 1000th class.
Yeah.
Like there is just something that is very raw and real. And that is where you get to the kernel of somebody's point of view.
Well, because you also, I mean, what's also clear, and you have an incredible following, and we want to talk about sort of how you build your brand, but like as you look at, who's resonating, numbers don't lie, and like you see the views and you also see the, to use a marketing term, those classes or those instructors who have a long tail. So how do you think about, growing your own community, but also sort of growing these complementary communities as you, again, create that right mix of instructors?
Right. I mean, we've always been a members first organization. So we want to meet our members where they are in their various life stages, right? And so from a content perspective, we're considering, what are people doing? How are they moving? And how can we meet them there? Or even widen the aperture of like what it means to have wellness offerings, including non-class content. So we introduced nutrition content with some of our instructors. I'm coming up with a cookbook next year based on my plant-based philosophy and point of view on eating and those recipes. So it's important to meet members where they are, but also honor the life stage and the evolution. Like I am not the same person that I was when, 12, 13 years ago when I joined the company. And so it included creating prenatal content. It's obviously entering the longevity conversation with something that is purposeful and having content that pairs with it, but also having a roster. Like we do want younger instructors.
Yeah,
we want instructors that are going to meet growing demos as well as honoring our core. And then we do look at demos for certain instructors, and it's where's their crossover, where's their expansion opportunity, where's their business as usual, where we just know it's working and we don't want to mix the drinks too much. It's like some folks kind of have their core, and then some folks are more expansive to demos that we do want to explore.
It is funny. I mean, to think about it. And Carolyn Tish-Blodgett, who you worked with, obviously, back in the day, she was on the show as well. And, obviously was a key voice in sort of a lot of the branding and sort of growing you guys as brands. One of the deals that you did early on is Adidas. You established a relationship. How does that come about? I mean, clearly you had your eye on the prize of like building your own brand. Tell us about Adidas.
So I started to understand that there were marketing dollars in these deals from initially working on the agency side, and Nike Women was my client. So I was doing their social media, and I started to get a little bit of visibility into like how these campaigns are kind of run and funded.
So you were consulting.
I was consulting.
Okay.
So I was on the agency side with a agency called Team Epiphany, and Nike Women was their client. And this was literally 3 weeks after the London Olympic Games. It was like my first job out of law. I was like, heck yeah, I want to do this.
Yeah.
And then I realized 6 months later, I want to be the talent that they're booking. And it was kind of the Wild West too. Like where marketing dollars was like, maybe we don't need $1 million commercial. We're going to splice it up this other way. That became my first foray into even the terminology. Like I didn't know that world at all. And then in the early days of joining Peloton, my first book came out. And that book got me on the radar of an agent. So I joined WME. I was with WME for a number of years. I'm now more recently with UTA. But then I was like, I have an agent. This is a business. Like this, there are ways for me to structure these conversations and, of course, lean on folks who know this stuff. And they were used to endorsement deals with, the A-Rods of the world. And I was one of the first brand sponsored deals with Adidas for somebody who's not a professional athlete.
Wow.
And it was pretty purely based on like brand recognition of the regular person and social media KPIs.
Yeah.
And then of course the services that were built in there, it was event appearances and photo shoots. And I remember I had done some modeling before my Adidas deal, but I remember being on set for my very first huge, massive Adidas campaign. And they had like a body double for me. And they were like asking me is this okay? Would you wear this? And I'm like, my opinion is relevant here.
Yeah.
And then I realized, right, I'm representing myself as well as the brand in the marketplace. And that was when I was like, that synergy has to exist. And whenever there isn't that synergy, then I know that it's probably not the right place for me.
Yeah.
So then the light goes up, then you go, oh my God, so I'm a brand.
Yeah.
I also represent Peloton, and Adidas thinks I'm pretty cool. How'd you think about scaling that opportunity?
Well, I was with Adidas for, I think, almost 5 years. And then I started thinking, like, what do I already use and consume and experience that makes sense? You know, I think I've worked with over 40 brands in like the 12 years since I've had these deals. And now I'm definitely at the place where it's like, I want to go deeper with fewer brands. You know, back then, I think it was very common for like, oh, I'm just going to post this one social media thing. And it's a lot of like, a lot of little
Like
smaller
one-off
stuff.
Sort of stuff. Yeah.
And that was very much part of the game back then, but I think it's now more curated for sure. At least from my perspective, it's much more curated. And I don't really do social media only deals ever anymore. It's usually a hybrid ownership stake or some kind of advisory thing that is more than just, you know, a brand deal. It really opened my eyes to different categories, different verticals. So it wasn't just things that were adjacent to movement and athletics. It was, for example, when I had my first child, it was a toy line. And then that was, you know, a royalty deal that it was a toy line, Bebe Fuerte, that was based on IP from my children's books that were, you know, in Walmarts all across the country. These are things I could not even have imagined.
Yeah.
But my life stage and the opportunities met.
Yeah.
So as you're speaking, I'm thinking about the NBA and the WNBA, and I'm involved with the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Lynx, and I'm very passionate about this. And my background's baseball, so I come from a little bit different world, but some things cross over. And what I'm thinking about is the culture you've created inside the four walls. I'm thinking to myself as you're speaking, how do we create that culture and energy and light the fire inside the four walls at Target Center where both teams play? I know you're a consultant, but if you want to give me some free advice or I can pay you later, what kind of things will you be thinking about? You know, when you have 20,000 people, there's a lot of heat in the room, teams are doing well. How would you think about it, high level?
I mean, I think it's storytelling and ritual. I think that's what's
Ritual, you said.
Ritual. I think that's what's so cool about fandom.
What do you mean by that?
So
Ritual.
there's the story that we all understand, and is that like what the media is capturing, conversations like this. I think especially with social media, it's like user-generated content of the fandom. That is what I think is so interesting about seeing what members post. Because there's like things that you can't plan, like curiosities around yellow, for example. Like yellow became a thing because yellow's kind of my power color, and I would naturally wear that for tough classes, like Tabata classes, interval sprints, race day. And now that's a thing. Like people wear yellow for these classes, and it is associated. And now it's going to be incorporated into some products that I have coming out, athletic products, because there's a thing about that.
Right.
So that's what I mean about what's the story and then what's the ritual, and can you kind of pair those things, you know, from a product perspective or even a storytelling perspective, you know, before the games, after the games.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's like the adjacent things like fashion and stuff where there's just little hooks.
Yeah.
That you kind of have to marry like the details with the larger story. And it's finding the right people who can like notice the details, like, oh, fans are kind of doing this weird thing, whether they spot it in the venue or on social media, and then you make it a thing. And then that becomes a snowball.
Connecting the dots, connect the dots.
The ritual point is really interesting too, because the ritual of class, I mean, I've had my Peloton for 8 years. It is ritual based. You know, it is like, it's a routine in the same way that like showing up to a game or watching a game, being connected. I mean, you know better than anyone the rituals of baseball.
Oh, yeah. And there's superstition. Like,
Yeah.
fans wear the same colors if you win. If your favorite player, Anthony Edwards, scores 40, they'll post about it and like do something weird about it, or they drank a certain thing.
Right.
And the idea is, how do we just connect those dots?
Yeah.
And spotting what's already naturally happening, and then communicating what the players and what the teams are doing, because people just love understanding, like, what's the morning routine, what's the ritual, what do you do pre-show, like, and unpacking that and like telling that story in a way that is appropriate for the brand. So I'm really curious, Alex, as how do you choose the teams? You entered sports teams ownership groups that are not baseball. So how did you do that? Because I just recently invested in a football club, a women's football club in Europe. I can't announce the team name yet, but I was a little trepidatious because I'm not like a soccer expert, but I'm so passionate, and this opportunity came across my desk, and it's like, how do you toe that line of like, I can offer something here? Because for me, it's not just the dollars.
Yeah.
It's like, I also want to be able to sit in seats like this and be like, this, I believe in this.
So, Robin, that's a great question. Like, so for me, Magic Johnson was kind of like my North Star. He was one of my heroes, someone that I just loved so much, going back to the Laker days at Showtime with Pat Riley. And it's interesting. He went from the hardwood to the boardroom. He also went from the court to baseball ownership with the Dodgers. And I've gone from baseball to basketball. And when Magic and I talk, we often are advising each other, him on the Timberwolves and the Lynx, and me for the Dodgers. But in a weird way, I think 60% you have a crossover. You still want great character, well-conditioned athletes, create a great culture, create heat inside those four walls we spoke about. And I'm a firm believer of just go out and hire the best people in the world and get the hell out of the way.
Yep.
And I think not everyone does that. And because I don't know, I'm not an expert in basketball, I actually think that works in my favor. I don't know if I'll be such a great baseball owner, to be honest with you, because I maybe know too much and I will probably get more frustrated. But with basketball, I'm in all of all our players, the men and the women. And they're incredible and they're young. And I get to talk to them about all the mistakes that I've made, and hopefully they can avoid those mistakes. And I have a great partner, Mark Laurie. So I actually love it. And I love learning. I love planting seeds. Every day I study 5 or 6 hours every day about basketball, whether I'm asking Jason questions or I'm reading or I'm listening to podcasts. So I've enjoyed it, and I wish you the best of luck. And they're very lucky to have you because you bring something that I wish we had from a partner's point of view, because you see the world from a different lens than all of us do. So yellow's the color.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm inspired. I'm really inspired.
And so help us understand, and I know Alex has, sort of done this same balancing act. You're on a team, you work for a company, you run a team, and yet you're a brand in your own right. You're doing your own deals. How do you balance that? How does it work? How do you approach it? It seems like this was the plan from the beginning, but how has it evolved?
So there used to be one-off conversations. It was just like, hey, I'm publishing a book next week. Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
Now there's an internal process, right? We have 50 plus instructors globally, and there are lots of conversations that are happening within the walls of Peloton and outside of it, but they have to run in parallel tracks. Whether the P on my chest is outside my clothing or underneath my clothing, it's always there. Just like the players are always, part of the organization.
Still a Yankee.
You're part of that organization, and so there are things that are wellness adjacent that are obviously we talk about that with much more specificity. And there's stuff, like my children's book or like, things that kind of were outside of the scope that I would never do within the Peloton walls anyway. And so usually that's a green light. But there are conversations for sure. And it's with our leadership team, and obviously our marketing team, has points of view on it. But our CCO is really integral to that conversation. And now we're at the place where our agents and our managers and our external teams have a relationship with the stakeholders at Peloton.
Right.
So it's really like one big conversation.
So following up right on that, I mean, kind of wearing two hats again, right? Like you're the team player for Peloton, one of the great leaders, and you're also running your own kind of family office.
Yeah.
So when you think about your family office, how does your team look, and how do you kind of vet deals, and where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years?
I mean, hiring the team is the most crucial thing in the world, especially because I'm really at the juncture where I need to understand what scales beyond my physical presence. And now it's thinking of, for example, the short answer is I work with my husband, who serves as my manager, and he's also my business partner. He has a history in business, so he's a subject matter expert in a lot of this stuff. And then the the deal details, we obviously lean on, my agent and our legal team. We have a PR team, so there's lots of spokes to the wheel, but the core of the strategy is my internal team, right? So like, we have, a chief strategy officer, and it's important that we all align, and they keep me kind of, I know I'm very, I think one of my superpowers is being incredibly decisive. So I know whether I want to do something, but 90% of the time the answer is no. And the no's usually come from leaning on, business advice from people who actually understand trends and dollars, right? So that's what we consider. 3 to 5 years. I want to continue to build in the lifestyle space. So whether that's food or beauty or fashion, I personally am still going to be continuing to compete and get strong. I want to continue to be strong and be an athlete and model that for women and girls, especially. So on a personal level, like I will continue to be moving my body, but on a professional level, I want to widen the aperture of how I'm seen, right? So it's not just Robin who teaches Peloton classes. I also am, on the speaker circuit. I also, I published 5 books. And now I want to get into beauty and fashion as well.
Right. And so it feels like, you look at IP very closely in the deals that you're doing. And I mean, it's interesting, we started off talking about your history as a lawyer. You're still a lawyer. I mean, it feels like that still plays a really big part in sort of how you do your deal making. Is that fair?
Every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a strategy. I think as a lawyer, there are puzzle pieces that you're always trying to fit. And the overarching thing is at least as a litigator, I think even as a corporate attorney, you're understanding narrative.
Yeah.
And that was when I understood narrative a little bit more specifically.
Yeah.
And narrative as a tool. And obviously now as a creator in social media, that's deeply relevant. But in creating Swagger Society with my husband, I initially co-founded Swagger Society in the Web3 days as a membership club. And then we were like, okay, well, clearly the landscape is changing there, and it migrated into a media company. So under the Swagger Society umbrella, we have a wholly owned podcast that will launch, a newsletter, and a production company.
Yeah.
And these are conversations that were like seeds. And I was like, oh, let's pull on that thread a little bit. Let's look at titans in the industry like Reese and Eva and Shonda and just learn from them. And they are my
Reese Witherspoon, Eva Longoria, Shonda Rhimes. Okay.
Yes.
Just name checking.
And they are obviously, iconic.
Yeah.
And I'm just learning and watching and understanding, and then trying to see like, okay, if I took a literal, not even a page, if I just took a paragraph out of that book, what would it look like for me, and what would infuse joy? And that is a threshold that I'm not willing to sacrifice on. Like if I'm not filled with joy, and I get joy from hard work, by the way, so it's not like it's all
right
walking through lily pads. But if there's not joy in it for me, it's just a no.
Right.
I really like how you articulated earlier, 90% no, and being super disciplined about what you say yes to. I call it, I used to go wide and shallow, and now I go narrow and deep, and it's been a lot more productive for me. When it comes to deal flow, does your team go out and try to find deal flow? Or if you like a company that identifies to your soul, do you kind of cold call and say, hey, can we take a meeting? Or are you just inbounding, and whatever comes in, you get the best of what's coming in?
It's both. I think now I'm at the point where I could be I want to be more strategic. Like I want to say like, I love this product, or I love this vertical, and let's go for it. That involves, strategic conversations like, who do we know at this place and this place? What are the top 3? What would be the dream collab or licensing deal or whatever it is? Or what would the deal look like, right? So like, I think before I was so stuck in how many social posts, how many appearances, how many photo shoots? And now it's like, no, let's play the long game. Like, are we talking about, is this a board seat? Is it, you know what I mean? Like these are different conversations now.
Yeah.
And that's exciting, but it's also really daunting.
Right.
Because it's like, it could be anything.
Yeah.
And it's not just about a liquid dollar amount. It's different now.
Yeah. We'd be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about Peloton. Speaking of narratives, if we were sitting here in front of our respective Bloomberg terminals, we'd look and we'd be like, whoa, that was a big high. And now it is not. where it was. It has been quite a journey, to say the least. You're still there. Like, you have stuck through it. Why?
Oh gosh, I have always believed, I still believe. I think that I have the unique privilege of seeing, and I'm not exaggerating, millions of comments over the years of people whose lives are changed. And if you don't know, you don't know. And it's our job to widen the group of people who know how special the fitness experience is, the wellness experience is. And when that light bulb goes off and somebody understands the quality of fitness content that they have at their fingertips, there is nothing, it is unparalleled.
Mm-hmm.
And, we continue building, we continue iterating. And I'm willing to ride the wave because at my core, I mentioned that in recruiting instructors, they have to have a point of view. My point of view is that I will light fires globally in the tens of millions, and Peloton will be a key to doing that because we are going to move the needle and make people healthier. I want to add years to people's lives, but I also want to add life to their years. And we're doing that at Peloton every day to millions of folks.
I mean, you're a leader inside the company. How do you sort of galvanize the troops? Because I have to think, in the four walls of your company, people are looking to you for belief, for that sort of thing. And you laid out a very good case for what it's doing. How hard has it been at times, though, to be like, listen, guys, we're doing this. Like, it's happening. Like, I know we had this high, but now we're, we're grinding it out. We're doing the work. How do you keep people motivated? I mean, we're all in a position where we have to motivate people who work with us.
Right. I mean, leaders do that every day, right? It's interesting to be on a team where there's lots of public figures that you're dealing with, right?
Yeah.
And so, they have their ear to the ground too, right? Like, it's not just what the street is saying. It's like, what are you seeing in your inbox and your comments on social media? What conversations are you having in the marketplace? I think, I don't know. I don't ride really high highs or let the low lows. Like, I just have to have a really even keeled mentality. And it does come back to that, like, was the class I just filmed my audition tape? Like, would if it all boiled down to that one class, would I be proud of it? And I think keeping it that granular and keeping myself that, like, checked, and then communicating that obviously to the team. And it's interesting because I have like executive function, but I'm also, the rules apply to me. I'm still doing the same job they're doing. So I think that there's a credibility there because it's like, we're just truly in this together.
Yeah.
And we have successfully created camaraderie in a bubble amongst our team globally that it's like I will rep my people and they will rep me. And that's how I think the team really respects that.
I feel like you need to bring her in for a motivational speech.
I was thinking the same
You're
thing.
repping me, I'm repping you. I feel that way about the deal. I
Yeah,
mean, like, we should say that
We're
to
in
each
it,
other.
we're in it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm repping you, you're repping me, bro. So, Alex talked about the next 3 to 5 years. I guess what I would love to ask is like the right now, and sort of as you assess and look around, you're clearly at, I mean, maybe you've had multiple catalytic points in your career. This feels like, it feels like you are in a mode where you are leveling up. You're talking about ownership. You're talking about, all these, kind of, I think Alex would agree, sort of next level athlete things. Does it feel like that to you? Does it feel like this is another one of those like leaps forward?
It definitely does. Strategically and financially, I understand that. Like, I'm having conversations that I would have only dreamed about, but also I have such a day one mentality that it's hard for me to sometimes like make those things match, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, have you made it? What's your most? No, of course I haven't made
Sure.
it. Like, none of us have. If you really think about it, like, we're out here like grinding, and that I love that. So I'm having different conversations now, and the stakes have changed, especially when my own money is involved.
Yeah.
But it also, I'm a student, and so it's just finding the places where I am confident and leaning into that, and then admitting when I don't know something and that being okay too.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm in these conversations where I am known, but around the table, I'm like, what are they talking about? Like, I don't need this deal. Like these financial terms are like beyond me. And I'm okay asking questions.
I think as I listen to you, I'm so inspired, Robin, because I think the three of us, well, we've done a few things in our lives. I think all of us feel like we're in the super early innings of our career.
Yeah.
I mean, many days I feel like I'm in the bottom of the first inning in business, especially because, I was busy playing baseball for a long time, and now I'm in my pivot, right, which is business. And you're the same thing. And, Jason's made some wild pivots too. I think it's exciting. I think having that thirst and curiosity is the one common theme. I mean, we're all very curious. And some of the great mentors that I've had, they all have that same characteristics. They want to ask questions. And they listen more than they talk,
Well, and I am sitting here, thinking about where you are in this stage. And I'll ask a question. This is a guy, my partner here who, was a standout athlete from an early age and was getting a lot of attention, goes to the major leagues right out of high school. You had a different journey. And so basically people knew who he was. He's on the cover of Sports Illustrated with Derek Jeter, like we all know that story. For you, it was a very different journey. What was it like, and what is it like where you can't walk down the street without people? I mean, people must shout at you across the street. Like, what is that like for someone who, went to NYU, corporate litigator with Paul Hastings, like you're doing your thing. It's a different world you live in now. What does that feel like?
I mean, it's an honor. It is an honor. Like, that's beyond. And usually the interactions, it'll be like, oh, Robin, whatever, at the US Open, it was like literally, it's so charming and exciting still when somebody's like, oh, hey, I know you, I just took your whatever class.
Yeah.
But what's overwhelming sometimes are the moments where I have a few more minutes or I'm stopped and it's like this intense outpouring of like,
you changed my life.
The breast cancer, the divorces, it's not always like a sob story, but they're intense. And I'm in somebody's living room and like over hundreds of thousands of classes, like early mornings, late nights, like there's a parasocial relationship that is super legit.
That's very intimate.
Very. And I am being myself, right?
Yeah.
So I have a class plan, I have notes, but I'm me. And every instructor is that, that's who they are, truly. And that's, I think, the special sauce. And that's why it's replicable over thousands of classes, because it's not an act and it's not a script. Yeah. And we're not wearing in-ears of somebody saying, hey, next up, say da-da-da-da. We're not scripted. I understand just different production environments, and I have such deep respect for the authenticity of Peloton.
I mean, I do think that it's easy to take for granted how intimate an interaction it really is, and how and we talked with Carolyn Tischblatt when she was here about, it's almost like a Rorschach test of like, all right, who's your instructor? Like when you're in, like, and it says something about sort of your personality, or even like the mood that you're in on any given day.
And we all do that. It's like, what mood am I in today?
Like,
and that's.
I mean, I will tell you, I only take your classes when I'm like ready to get my ass kicked. So
run through a wall.
When I need it, this would be a good one
we
for you.
have plenty of that.
Yeah, there's
you need to take it.
There's a lot of that. All right, we're going to do a rapid fire. So it's 10 questions. Just first thing that pops to your mind. You don't need to think about it too hard. All right, I'll start and then Alex will pick up. Ready? Mm-hmm. What's one word to describe your deal-making style?
Decisive.
What's more important to you, gut or data?
Gut.
Who's your dream deal-making partner?
Oh, gosh, there's so many. I would love to work with Dwayne Johnson. I think what he's done at $7 is genius.
And Danny Garcia.
And Danny, of course.
What's the best piece of advice you ever received on deal making or business?
The best advice. It's either yes or a no, thank you.
What's the worst advice you've been given?
Stay in your lane.
What's a deal you wish you had done?
Oh, I don't regret it. But after I left Adidas, I was negotiating with another athletic brand. And the reason I left Adidas is because I really wanted to do a capsule collection or something that had, it was a creative, something that was creatively inspired by myself and the brand. And we were really, really close to signing a deal that would have involved that. But I still felt like the financials weren't there. It was kind of like, we'll throw you a bone. You'll have a capsule collection. But I felt undervalued. And it went a few years without an athletic partner. And then, now having conversations with Noble, it feels like, oh, right, that door closed because it created this one.
What's harder, running an ultramarathon or writing a book?
I think writing a book, because there are so many other players in that process.
This one is going to be a tough one. What is your hype song before you go into a big meeting or negotiation?
I mean, listen, MOP Annie Up was on my labor playlist for the hospital. So clearly I have playlists for everything. If I'm really trying to get into a groove, Beyonce's Homecoming Live performance, like front to back, really inspires me. It's obviously the music is dope, but the symbolism of it, of her being a Black woman headlining Coachella just really inspires me. And then keeping it in the family, Jay-Z's My First Song, it goes to that day one mentality. Yeah. And it both pumps me up, but also keeps me grounded. Because it's like, it's day one. We're still hustling.
Hustling. This may be the first time you said hustle. I was expecting like hustle throughout this whole thing. You can only watch one sport for the rest of your life. Which one is it?
Watch one. I think it would be track and field, actually. I love track and field.
If one team can win a championship, which one would that be?
I think my husband might be very upset if I don't say the Jets. Because good God, they need it.
Wow.
Yeah. Well,
we can go to church on that.
That's the saddest answer we've had to that question.
I wasn't expecting that.
I was not expecting that one at all. Robin, you continue to surprise on so many levels. What a pleasure. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm honored to be here. Thank you for having me.
The Deal is a production from Bloomberg Podcasts and Bloomberg Originals. The Deal is hosted by Alex Rodriguez and Jason Kelly. This show was produced by Anna Mazarakis, Stacey Wong, Lizzie Phillip, and Eden Martinez. Original music and engineering by Blake Maples. Matt Medulla was our sound operator. Our booker is Paige Keffer. David E. Ravella is our managing editor. Our executive producers are Jason Kelly, Amy Keene, Jordan Opplinger, Trey Shallowhorn, Regina Delia, Kelly LaFerrier, and Ashley Honig. Sage Bauman is our head of podcasts. Special thanks to Rachel Carnevale, Elena Sausangelis, and Nick Silva. Joshua DeVoe is our director of photography. Rubab Shakir is our creative director. Art direction is from Jacqueline Kessler. Camera operation by Suma Hussein, Ryan Cavatero, and Holly Fisher. Our gaffer is Julia Goweski, and our grip is Emily Wolowski. Taja Smith is our video editor. You can listen to The Deal on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also tune in to the video companion on Bloomberg Originals and on Bloomberg TV. Thanks for listening.